The rain came down in cold, steady sheets, turning the streets into glistening rivers of grey. John tightened his grip on the steering wheel, the wipers struggling to keep up with the downpour as he made his way home from the night shift at the hospital. The clock on the dashboard blinked 10:48 p.m. His daughter, Lily, would already be asleep, curled up under the blanket they had picked out together last Christmas. He was exhausted, tired in that way only single parents truly understood, but something about the night felt off as he approached the last intersection before his neighborhood. His headlights caught a figure sitting on the bench at the old bus stop, just a shadow at first, but as he drew closer, the figure became clearer. Young woman in a military uniform, soaked through her duffel bag at her feet. She was hunched over, hugging herself against the wind, her hair stuck to her cheeks, and her boots muddy. The bus stop shelter offered no real protection from the storm, and yet there she sat, motionless, like she had nowhere else to be. John's foot lifted off the gas pedal, and without thinking, he pulled over to the curb. He stared at her for a second through the foggy window, his thoughts racing. She looked barely older than a teenager, tired, alone, and completely out of place in the middle of this storm. Something tugged at his chest, something that overruled logic or hesitation. He rolled down the window. Rain and wind rushed in, but his voice was steady. "You're coming with me," he said. The girl flinched slightly, startled. She looked up, eyes red from either cold or tears, and seemed to weigh his words for a long second. Maybe it was the exhaustion in her eyes, maybe it was the calm certainty in his voice, or maybe it was the way he said it, not as a demand, but like a lifeline thrown in the dark. She didn't ask who he was. She didn't ask why. She just stood up, slung her bag over her shoulder, and stepped into the warm light of the car. Neither of them said much as he drove off, but somehow, everything had already changed. The drive home was quiet except for the soft hum of the heater, and the sound of the tires rolling over wet pavement. Emily sat stiffly in the passenger seat, clutching her duffel bag like it was the only thing anchoring her. Her eyes were red, not just from the cold, John suspected, but from something deeper. She kept glancing out the window, as if trying to convince herself this was real, that a stranger would pull over in the rain and offer her shelter without asking for anything in return. John didn't push her to talk. He had learned over the years, especially after losing his wife, that sometimes silence was a better comfort than words. After a few minutes, he cleared his throat and offered her a small smile. "I live about 10 minutes from here. It's not much, but it's warm. My daughter's probably asleep by now. I hope you don't mind a house with toys on the floor." Emily shook her head, a faint, grateful smile flickering on her lips. "No, it sounds nice." Her voice was quiet, like she was afraid that speaking too loud might break whatever strange moment was happening. John glanced at her again. "You from around here?" She shook her head. "I grew up bouncing between foster homes, joined the army right after high school. It gave me something steady, something to belong to." There was a pause. "I just got back today. Nobody was at the airport. I figured I'd catch a bus, find a motel. I didn't plan much beyond that." John felt a wave of emotion stir in his chest. He had seen this look before in patients, in families, even in his own mirror after the funeral. It was the look of someone who didn't expect kindness anymore. "Well," he said gently, "tonight you don't need a plan. Tonight you're just someone who deserves a dry roof and a hot meal." When they pulled into his driveway, Emily stared at the house like it was something from a dream. Nothing fancy, just a single-story home with a little porch and a wind chime that danced softly in the breeze. She hesitated before stepping out of the car. "Why are you doing this?" she asked, not accusing, just trying to understand. John looked her in the eyes. "Because someone should have done it for you. A long time ago." She didn't answer. She didn't need to. Her silence said everything. The kitchen smelled faintly of leftover soup and cinnamon-scented candle wax, the kind of cozy scent that didn't exist on military bases. Emily sat at the small wooden table, her damp duffel bag set neatly by the front door. She wore an old grey hoodie that hung loose on her sleeves, rolled awkwardly at the wrists. Her hair was still wet from the shower, but her face looked softer now, the lines of exhaustion a little less harsh under the warm light. John moved around the kitchen with the casual rhythm of someone who'd done this 100 times before. Bowls, warming bread, filling 2 glasses of water. There was no rush, no pressure, just a simple, quiet rhythm that made the space feel safe. From down the hallway came the soft shuffle of tiny feet. John turned just as Lily appeared, clutching a stuffed rabbit and blinking sleepily. Her brown hair stuck up in every direction, and her oversized pajama shirt hung nearly to her knees. She looked up at Emily, who quickly straightened in her chair. "Daddy, who's that?" Lily asked, her voice more curious than scared. John crouched beside her and brushed hair from her eyes. "This is Emily," he said gently. "She's a soldier and she's staying with us tonight, just like a sleepover." Lily's face lit up at the word. "A real soldier?" Emily smiled and nodded. "Yup, but I forgot my sword at the base." Lily giggled and walked straight over to her, bold as ever, and sat across from her at the table. "That's okay. You can borrow mine." John served them both soup and bread, and they sat there, the three of them, as naturally as if it had always been that way. Between spoonfuls, Emily began to open up, not all at once, but in pieces, how she aged out of foster care, how the army gave her a name and a purpose, how silence became a comfort when home never was. John didn't interrupt, he just listened. Lily chimed in occasionally, offering little facts about her school and her favorite cartoons. Unaware, she was weaving herself into Emily's heart with every word. Something strange began to settle in Emily's chest, a warmth, a stillness, a sense that she was allowed to rest. For the first time in years, she didn't feel like she had to run. She felt seen, she felt safe, and somehow, impossibly, she felt like she belonged. The early morning light slipped through the curtains, casting soft golden patterns on the floor, as Emily stood in the guest room, staring at her uniform laid out on the chair. It was strange how something that once made her feel strong and sure of herself now felt so heavy. She had folded John's late wife's hoodie neatly and placed it on the bed, grateful for the simple comfort it had given her. There was a stillness in the house, the kind that only exists before the world fully wakes up. It felt sacred. For the first time in a long while, she had slept without clutching her fists or waking from dreams of sand and sirens. For one night, she had just been a person, not a soldier, not a survivor, just Emily. She stepped into the hallway and made her way to the kitchen. John was already there, humming softly as he flipped pancakes on a worn skillet. The air smelled like butter and maple syrup. Lily was at the table again, this time fully dressed, her hair tied back with a crooked pink ribbon. When she saw Emily, her eyes lit up. "You're still here?" Emily smiled gently. "Only for a little while. I've got a ride coming soon." Lily looked down at the table. "Will you come back?" The question hit harder than Emily expected. She crouched beside Lily, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. "Maybe, if it's okay with you." Lily nodded fast. "You're part of our family now. I drew you a picture." From the table, Lily picked up a folded sheet of paper and handed it to her. It was a child's drawing, 3 stick figures standing beneath a yellow sun. One had long hair, one had a beard, and one wore green. Above them was a wobbly heart and the words, "My family," in crayon. Emily's throat tightened. She opened the pocket of the jacket John had lent her and found another folded paper tucked inside. A note in his handwriting, "You matter. Come back if you ever need a place to call home." She didn't try to hold back the tears. She let them fall. No salute had ever moved her like that note. No uniform had ever felt as warm as this home, and as she stood there holding that picture and that note to her chest, she realized that this night, this house, this family, they had done more for her than any deployment ever could. They had reminded her she was still human, still loved, still welcome. A year had passed, yet the memories of that stormy night still lived vividly in John's mind. Life had carried on as it always did, school runs with Lily, night shifts at the hospital, quiet dinners at home, but something had changed after that evening. Emily's presence, even brief, had left behind an invisible warmth that still lingered in the corners of their home. John often caught Lily redrawing that same picture, always including the soldier in green, always adding a smile to her face. Every few weeks a postcard arrived with no return address, just a few lines in careful handwriting. "Still out here, still thinking of that night. Tell Lily I miss her pancakes." Then, on a rainy evening almost exactly 1 year later, John found himself driving home from work along the same stretch of road. The clouds hung low, and the air smelled like wet pavement and memory. As he passed the old bus stop, something made him slow down. A figure stood under the same flickering streetlight, suitcase in one hand, flowers in the other. She wore civilian clothes this time, jeans, a dark coat, boots, but he would have known her anywhere. He pulled over, heart racing just a little. Emily turned before he could even roll down the window. She smiled, rain dripping from the brim of her hood. "Hope that invitation's still open," she said, holding out the bouquet. "Daisies. I remember Lily said they were her favorite." John didn't say a word. He simply got out, took the flowers, and pulled her into a hug. No hesitation, no questions, just a welcome that had never really ended. Back at the house, Lily exploded out the front door the moment she saw her. "Emily," she shouted, launching herself into her arms. "You came back." Emily held her close, whispering, "I told you I would." Inside, the house felt brighter. The walls didn't echo as much. Laughter returned to the dinner table like an old friend. Emily wasn't a guest this time. She unpacked her suitcase in the spare room, changed into her old hoodie, and helped set the table like she'd never left. That night, as the three of them sat curled on the couch, Lily between them, John looked over and said softly, "You didn't just come back, did you?" Emily shook her head, her eyes filled with tears. "No, I came home.